And we're back here, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Gelb and Chase here with you for the main event, taking up until noon Eastern time, where Temple Sports Hour will come your way. Now joining us on the hotline, he covers the Eagles for the Philadelphia Daily News, and that's Les Bowen. Les, it's Zach and Chase here in Philly. How are you?
Just great. How are you guys?
Well, we're doing great on this beautiful Monday here in Philadelphia, and we've been dissecting this whole Deshaun Jackson mess for the last 2 weeks, and there's many ways and many reasons that people could think why he got released, but you cover this team on a daily basis. In your opinion, why was number 10 cut from the Eagles?
Well, I think it was a combination of things. I think primarily it was football. I think he makes a lot of money. He was going to make even more money going forward. He had a career year last year, but this year they're bringing back Jeremy Maclin. They brought in Darren Sproles. They're probably going to draft a receiver pretty high. There's an excellent chance that he wasn't going to reach last year's production, and there's an excellent chance that he wasn't going to be happy with that, and that there were going to be problems and things they'd have to deal with. And I think they got into this thinking they were going to trade him, get something valuable for him in a draft that everybody says is one of the best drafts ever, and they don't have very many picks. And after it got out that they wanted to trade him, it kind of became an unsalvageable situation, and they ended up cutting him. And I don't think it's a good outcome for them or for, well, it might be for him, because he has a new contract, which is what he wanted. But I think he was probably in a better situation here in terms of his career success. And I think they were a better team with him.
There's clearly an attitude problem with Deshaun Jackson, and a lot of the teammates of his former teammates, were very quiet on the matter when he was released, and you saw LaShawn McCoy break his silence over the weekend. What did you make of Shady's comments, and also what do you think the general mood is in the locker room with the release of Deshaun Jackson?
Well, it's really hard to say what the overall mood is because the team hasn't been together, and we don't really have a chance to talk to more than a few guys, and it'll take some time to sort all that out. But I do think what LaShawn McCoy said over the weekend illustrates that in a locker room with 53 players, it's not like everybody thinks exactly the same thing. You've seen a couple of instances of players, being very supportive of getting rid of Deshaun and agreeing that he was a distraction and not worth the hassle. And LaShawn McCoy doesn't feel that way. He's probably closer to Deshaun than anybody other than maybe Mike Vick, who's no longer on the team, obviously. And, he thinks they've lost something pretty valuable there. He's not in rebellion against Chip Kelly or, questioning that the people in charge don't, know what they're doing or anything like that. But he certainly has some questions, as many fans do, about why this happened and what they're going to do going forward.
Les Bowen of the Philadelphia Daily News joins us on the hotline. Les, it's Chase. Good to talk to you again. We haven't heard a peep from the Eagles. I mean, Kelly, Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, everybody has remained silent, and obviously it makes your job as a reporter pretty tough. But from the fans' sake, do they have the reason to be a little bit frustrated with the Eagles not coming out and letting people know why they released one of the top deep threats in the league in his prime?
Oh, I absolutely think so. Up until the time they released him, they were selling $120 Deshaun Jackson jerseys on their website. He's been a face of the franchise. That 25-word announcement when they released him just was not sufficient. I've had people say to me when I bring that up, well, they don't want to get sued. What could they possibly say that wouldn't be detrimental to him? Well, two things. One is I could, in my sleep, knock out a statement that would at least give some explanation that wouldn't be libelous,
right?
Or wouldn't say that he was the worst guy in the history of the world. And two, they timed his release to coincide with the publication of a story on NJ.com that indicated he was affiliated with members of the Crips. So if they're all that worried about not maligning him, I think they kind of missed the boat there when they did things that way. It's a little late to worry about that now. I think this has been badly handled by the Eagles. I don't think. I think they kind of. It looks to me like they had kind of blundered into this and ended up doing something that they didn't anticipate having to do when they set out to do it. I think they thought they would trade him somewhere for something, and they wouldn't need to do too much explaining. And the way all this mushroomed with the NJ.com story and the release, and him signing with the Redskins, has made it like a much bigger deal than I think they thought it was going to be when they sat down 2 months ago or 3 months ago and said, what if we looked at doing something with Deshaun Jackson?
What path do you see the Eagles taking in the draft? Because this move now makes the Eagles pretty thin at the wide receiver position, yet the defense, although they made some strides under Billy Davis last year, they have a lot of holes on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they really do. I don't think they'll go into the draft, with the idea that they have to get something in the early rounds. That I think that's been where they screwed up in previous years. I think they can afford to be a little bit, best player available. Unless the best player available is a quarterback at 22, I don't see how that would work. But, if there's a wide receiver, there's a very good chance. I mean, looking at this draft, there's an excellent chance that there's a real good wide receiver there at 22, and I don't think you'd be forcing anything if you took a wide receiver at 22. Do you have to? Probably not. If there's a really good safety at 22, you can certainly take that guy as well. Or a really great corner, you could justify that. You could justify almost anything. An edge rusher, good Lord. That's probably their most pressing need right now.
For sure, yeah.
It's a really dynamic, star-level edge rusher. I'm not sure that guy's going to be there at 22, but if he is, take him and worry about the wide receiver later. I think this is a draft where you might be able to get a difference-making wide receiver in the second or even third round. And, obviously Deshaun was a second-round pick. Anquan Bolden was a second-round pick. It's not like every great receiver gets drafted in the first round. It's not like some positions. So, they have to get a receiver out of this draft. They have to get a safety out of this draft. But, where those go and what priority you put on them, it probably depends on who's there. It's going to be hard for them to trade up, which is something you would normally look at 22. For one thing, this is a deeper draft than usual, so 22 is a little better than it might seem some years. The other thing is they only have 6 picks, and it's such a good draft. You don't want to give away picks later on to move up to get a guy that might be slightly better in the first round. So, it's unfortunate because the Eagles usually have many more than 6 picks. They've had, double-digit picks in some drafts, a lot of them in the 6th and 7th round, but still, 6 picks in a draft is supposed to be this good. That's a shame. You'd like to have more.
We're spending a few minutes with Les Bowen from the Philadelphia Daily News, and I agree with you. I would go defense in the earlier rounds because that's the big need for this team. And I also look at the offense now. Yes, you still don't have Deshaun Jackson, but you have other explosive weapons. One that you just brought in the Darren Sproles. You could also see more of 2 tight end sets. If they don't go out there and get a big wide receiver in the first round, does this offense have the pieces to try to replicate the numbers from last year, especially with those few pieces I just mentioned?
Well, there are a lot of factors there. One is the offensive line going to hold up, and Lane Johnson going to continue to improve, and is Nick Foles going to continue to improve, or is he going to have some kind of sophomore slump type season? I think those are probably 2 huge variables. Is LaShawn McCoy going to be as healthy as he was last year when he was the best running back in the league? But they're getting Jeremy Maclin back, and it's going to be. I think they're going to have a very, very productive offense. And while defenses have a year of tape to watch now of the Eagles' offense, Chip Kelly also has a year under his hat of playing in the NFL and seeing what NFL defenses do. And you heard him talk at the NFL meetings about teams play us with man coverage, one safety, high safety deep. He understands what teams want to do against the Eagles, and he has all offseason to figure out how he wants to counter that. So I think they'll have a very good offense and a good team, if people stay healthy. That's the one thing that, they were really, really healthy last year other than Maclin. And some of it was sports science and all that stuff, and some of it was just luck, and sometimes you don't get that luck. So we'll just see if that's the case again this year.
Les, you've covered this team for so many years, and you've also spent a lot of time in the Eagles locker room, and you've been around DeSean Jackson for his entire career. A lot of fans see what he is able to do on the field. They follow his Instagram and Twitter account, but what kind of guy is DeSean Jackson inside the locker room? Because, frankly, he didn't really hang out with a lot of players on the team.
Yeah, that's true. I can't say that I know him intimately. I've been around him a lot. I think he's a diva. He's a wide receiver. If you ever saw that documentary that his brother made,
yeah.
This is a guy that was raised kind of like a tennis player, with a group of people around him from the time he was very young, whose lives were focused on developing him. And there was very little team context to that. If you watch that documentary, you see DeSean wearing a whole bunch of uniforms over the years, scoring a whole bunch of touchdowns, but you never got any indication of whether his team won that game or had a winning season or if he had any teammates or anything like that. And that's the way he was brought up, and I'm not excusing it necessarily, but that's who he is. There are a lot of guys like that, frankly, in professional sports. It's not optimal in a team sport like football, but part of coaching is making the best of talent that you have, and that guy has talent. And I'll admit, I'm a bit disappointed that Chip Kelly, didn't find a way to make that work for the Eagles. I think DeSean is a valuable weapon. He's one of the fastest, most explosive players in the league. Tremendous, kind of a get out of jail free card when things aren't going well and the offense has no rhythm. You always have that chance of throwing one over the top and having him catch it, and the game turns. He's not the whole gang thing. I think, now I don't know for sure, but I think it's more of a wannabe type of deal than really reality. I think he likes, in the rap community, he likes the cred that he gets of having that association with guys who were into the Crips. But the Daily News looked around, and asked people in law enforcement, and there's no great, he hasn't done anything horrendous that's lurking out there, which a lot of people thought when he was released that must be the case. I don't think he's a criminal. I don't think he's in any involved in any really terrible dealings. But I think the team did have some concerns about people around him and the things that they might get up to down the road.
Les Bowen joins us on the hotline. Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here with you on the main event. And Les, when Andy Reid was here, he oversaw a lot of the personnel decisions, especially the last couple of years. And Chip Kelly comes in here, he establishes a culture from the get-go, and it seems as though almost all of the players bought in. But now it seems as though he has a firm grip on this franchise. Do you see that as well?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely Chip's ship to pilot here. And even with what LaShawn McCoy said this weekend, he was very careful to also point out that he wasn't second-guessing Chip Kelly, that he thinks, while he doesn't understand what happened here, that he's confident that they have a plan and that things are going to be, that Chip's not going to put them in a position where they're not able to function offensively. And I think that's I don't think there's anybody at this point that's really skeptical or waiting for some kind of, other signal than they've gotten from Chip Kelly. I think everybody understands who he is and what he's doing. I just think, it would be easier for everybody if Chip would talk about it a little bit.
Before we let you run on the way out here with Les Bowen from the Philadelphia Daily News, in the offseason, I always am on ProFootballTalk.com, and I look at the arrest tracker that they have, and they try to see how many days an NFL player could go without making an arrest. And I know it's not Eagles-related, but Aldon Smith gets himself in some hot water again yesterday. How many more chances does a player like this get? Because he has all the talent in the world, but he keeps on getting himself in trouble off the field.
Well, you hit it right on the head when you said a player like this. I mean, if he was a second-string, special teams kind of guy, he'd be gone. But he's Aldon Smith, so I think there's going to be some excuse-making and some stern talking to and stuff like that. that's a big quandary for everybody in the NFL. There are a lot of guys who have talent who, aren't the guys you'd like them to be off the field. And how do you measure the risk-reward there? And with the 49ers, they've got a little bit of a problem. They've been in the news a lot this offseason, and I think somebody's going to have to take charge of the culture there and turn it around a little bit. And these are some of their most talented players who are being involved in these situations. And, that's just not where you want to be as a franchise. And I think, I don't know what they're going to do with Aldon Smith. That's going to be a real fascinating question. He's a great player. They did win some games without him last year, so, maybe they make an example out of him. I don't know. But, obviously it'll be in the league's hands, but any discipline, I don't think teams impose discipline typically. But, it's going to – this is it's not just the Eagles that face this problem. It's a big cultural problem in the NFL at the moment.
Les, we appreciate the time so much today. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks so much, my friend.
Great talking to both of you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Les.
Les Bowen right there from the Philadelphia Daily News. We'll take a quick break here on the main event, and we'll be back right after these short messages.